Hey guys, how are you all doing? This is Adam D'Angeli from Rescue Michigan, and tonight we've got a special presentation. Campaign finance reports have come out, and we are going to go through them for some of the big ticket races in Michigan. This was an unannounced stream. I did mention it in the show last night, but I wasn't sure we were going to do it tonight. We might have waited till tomorrow, but here we are. I figure might as well do it, strike while the iron's hot. We're going to go through these numbers. We're going to look at how the candidates for governor are doing, how the candidates for attorney general are doing, how the candidates for secretary of state are doing. So it should be interesting. Obviously, we're not expecting a lot of live chat, but if you're out there, feel free to chime in, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. But let's just get right into it, folks. I'm going to put my screen up here. This is where you go to find all of the Michigan candidates for everything, their financial reports. The address at the top of the screen, you can see it's nictusa.com. You should bookmark that because we're not going to go through the candidates for state house and state senate because it would take forever. There's too many of them, but you probably should. It's important if you're organizing locally to know how those candidates are doing. Now, I would caution you, there will be a little bit of difficulty in finding those numbers because we just went through redistricting, and any candidate that was filed in the past year had to have filed under the current district numbers, which are not going to be the numbers they're going to ultimately run in. Maybe they refiled to amend what district they're running in now that the new district boundaries have been drawn, or maybe they haven't. So you might need to look at both the old and the new House and Senate districts to find the candidates' reports. But in any event, this is where you go to find their fundraising reports, is cfrsearch.nictusa.com. And we are going to look at the numbers for the candidates for governor, attorney general, and secretary of state, see how they're doing. Now, in politics, money is not everything, but it can be a big thing. And a candidate that's got a lot more money than an opponent's going to have a big advantage, not always enough to overcome, huge amounts of grassroots support and things like that. However, in big races, like races for the bigger the race, the more critical money is. You can be running for state rep and knock on every door in the district and not raise a lot of money. But if the voters connect with you because you get to talk to all of them, then you might win. But if you're running for a statewide office where you have to get literally 1 million votes, it is really hard to do if you don't have the money to do it. So let's get right into it. We're going to look at the candidates for governor first. So these campaign finance reports all covered the period from, I think it was late October through the new year. They just came out today. Today was their due date. So the period covered is the last 2 months and change of the past year. But the two numbers we're going to look at for each of these candidates, the two most important numbers to look at, number one is cash on hand as of New Year's. And number two is how much money they've raised in total. The cash on hand is obviously exactly how much resources they have to put into the campaign as of that time. And then, of course, how much they have raised in total might give you some indication of how much they can continue to raise in the future. Now, I think of the two, cash on hand is going to be the more important one, because the reality is, in most campaigns, and especially these big ticket campaigns where they have to spend most of their money in election season advertising, we're talking about the fundraising reports coming from the end of the year here. So whatever money they've already spent is not going to be able to go into election, get out the vote type advertising, unless maybe they bought some ads really, really early. But ordinarily, the ads that the money they spend early in the race is sunk cost. It's paying for staff, paying for yard signs, paying for campaign materials, paying to get an ad done, that kind of thing. The money they have late in the game is going to matter much more. But anyway, here we go. We are looking at the list of all 12 of the filed candidates for governor in Michigan. You can see at the bottom here's Brian Kelly. That's obviously not for now. That was for 4 years ago. but starting from Austin Chang and to the present, they're listed in the order that they filed. So Perry Johnson is the most recent. And for him, actually, we have no information because he only just filed 4 days ago. So there's no information for what his cash statement is. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But unfortunately, this is going to be the last report that we get from any of these candidates until shortly before the August primary. So this is all we have to go on for the next long time. Otherwise, I mean, and for now through, I think, like July, this is the only financial information we're going to get from these candidates. So we don't know anything about Perry Johnson. We talked about him on last night's show. I never heard of him until Amber and Shane mentioned him. And they say he's very wealthy. And so we're going to talk about him in a little bit once we go through the candidates whose numbers we do have and talk about how that might impact the governor's race. But anyway, no information for Perry Johnson because he just filed the other day, and these campaign statements are covering the period that ended at the end of last year. So after Perry Johnson, the next most recent candidate to file was Donna Brandenburg. Now, if you want, you can go through, you can click on the annual report here. You see, you click on keyed paper file data to get to the listing of information. If you want to look up who their donors are, you can click on that link. If you want to look up who they've been paying out money to, you can click on that link. For our purposes tonight, we're just going to look at the summary page and look at those two key figures: cash on hand, how much they've raised. Now, I heard Donna Brandenburg was very wealthy. She was going to put a lot of money into her campaign. But that's all I've known about her. I met her. Well, I didn't meet her, but I saw her once at a function, maybe about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, something like that. And that's all I really know about her. But let's see what her numbers are saying. Okay. So her cash on hand right now is $7,494, and the total that she's raised is $41,365.23. Maybe she is, as people have said, still very wealthy and still could pour in a lot of money into her campaign yet. As of now, she hasn't. And typically that's not a smart play. Like what you would normally do if you had a lot of money is you would put the money into the campaign. You can even put the money in as a loan and withdraw it later so that you have an impressive number for this report. Because as I just said, this report is the last thing that we have as far as campaign finance disclosures go until like August. So, or at least late July. So if she is going to put real money into her campaign, I'm surprised that she didn't do it already. But these are not very impressive numbers, folks. Running for governor, running for state representative, having $7,000 in the bank is not very good. So anyway, that is where Donna Brandenburg is. Let's see who we have next. I'm just going to go down the list in the order that it's here, the order that the candidates filed from most recently to least recently. So next up, we have Kevin Rinke. He announced he was going to put millions of dollars of his own money into his campaign. I briefly met with him a few weeks ago. Don't know a whole lot about him. He's an auto dealer. I did hear about his campaign ad. It was punchy. That was cool. He says he compared Gretchen Whitmer to a Yugo because he's a car dealer and he's a Corvette, something like that. So we've got that, but not much else, honestly. I'm not here to pontificate about the candidates and their messages and all that. I just want to look at the numbers. I just want to see how they are doing financially. So here is Kevin Rinke's statement. And again, the period, here it is right here. Here's what I was saying earlier. The period that we're looking at for all these reports is late October through December. But again, we don't really care about how much they raised in that period or spent in that period. What we care about is how much cash do they have on hand right now? How much have they raised since they started? So he's got his statement here. We go to the summary page and let's see. Total contributions, $2 million and $4,938.02. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest I bet the $2 million was his own $2 million. That seems likely to me. But and because only the candidate can give all the money to the campaign. Everybody else has campaign finance limits. So unless he raised $2 million from, like 1,000 people, this probably mostly came from just himself, and that's fine. I mean, if you have the money to do it, more power to you. So $2 million in change in total receipts, and he spent a little over $500,000 already. So on hand, he has 1.4 and a half, close to $1.5 million on hand in the bank. That's contender level fundraising or financing. And again, he has that money to put into his campaign, so he says, and I don't doubt that, because where else would the money have come from? He's a late entry, and he's still, I think, probably not too well known to people. I mean, like I said, I've only heard of him a few times, only saw him once, met him briefly, but these are numbers that are taken seriously. $2 million is a lot of money to put into your campaign, period, to have from any source. So there you go. All right, who do we have next? And I just click the back button on my browser, and we get back to Michael Brown. I believe he is a sheriff in, there you go, Berrien County. And I think his campaign thing is that he's a police officer, as is or was James Craig. And let's look at how he's doing. So we have the, and again, we're clicking the same links, one of the same information pages for each of these campaigns. Michael Brown has raised $145,000, close to 146. That's his total contributions up to this point. And he has spent very little of it, actually. That's impressive fiscal discipline for a candidate. He has $128,000 on hand. A lot less than Rinke has, though, unfortunately. And maybe he doesn't have the ability to self-fund the way that Rinke does. But them's the ropes. I mean, if I had $10 million to run for governor, maybe I would. But I don't, and most people don't, and that's just how that goes, unfortunately. Hey, Keith in the chat says, looks like he loaned it for sure. Yeah, of course, I'm sure. Absolutely, no question about it. That's fine. I could have gone and clicked the link and looked to see who the contributions were received from, but yeah, no question about it. And that's, like I said, like it or don't, that's the way it all works. So, all right, anyway, so that's Michael Brown. Who do we have next? Next, we have James Craig. Okay, here we go. James Craig was the establishment favorite. I say was. I'll elaborate on that in a moment. But this is the guy that, at least until about a week ago, was the candidate to beat. So how is he faring on his annual statement? Let's take a look. We look at the key data. This one comes in strangely. You've got this strange bifurcation between public funds and private funds. The information just looks totally different, but I think we can boil this all down to a few key numbers here. First off, under this cash statement, private funds, because you see there's no anything on public funds. Private funds, you've got these total receipts, private funds, and in this column, cumulative for election cycle. So that appears to be the number of total funds raised for his campaign, just over $2 million. Gee, I wonder why perhaps Rinke put in $2 million of his own money into the campaign. Puts him right in line with James Craig. Ronald Matt says, please share. Hey, thanks, Ronald, for posting that in the chat. I don't know how it works. I see you're on YouTube. I don't know that people on YouTube see that in the comments, but thank you. We are also live on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/Rescue Michigan Coalition, I think you can promote this live stream on Facebook. It's going to be on both of them and archived at the same places, and of course, we'll also post it to Rumble as well. But hey, Ronald, thank you for the support. So anyway, this is James Craig's total amount raised, just over $2 million, and on hand, I think the number we're looking for on this oddly different form is this here. It's the balance statement. You see there, it says ending cash balance, and under total, I have to assume this is what it's saying. He has $845,000, $970.64 on hand. Now, again, That's less than Rinke has on hand, but that may be because he has pre-ordered advertising. Maybe he's paid some things up front, employee costs, whatever else it is. So you can't take everything just from the cash on hand. You have to look at both. There's how much they raised, how much they've got on hand. But for what it's worth, that is what Chief James Craig has on hand. He spent a little over $1 million. He has $845,000 on hand. All right. Next up, we have Artesia Bomer. You may, if you don't know who she is, and I would not blame you if you don't, but she was, she testified at the House and Senate hearings on the what happened at the TCF Center. She was the lady wearing the patriotic hat, and I think she leveled some accusations against the members of the committee, but whatever. I think they actually leveled some accusations against her. But anyway, she has not filed a financial report at all. She has a waiver. It is the waiver you get when you do not intend to raise or spend more than $1,000 in your campaign, which is not enough to run for governor. So oftentimes you'll see candidates file for the waiver when they first announce, but then as soon as they hit the $1,000, they have to then start reporting. And there's a notice in this documents on file list that says when the notice of waiver or notice of no waiver was received, that's when the state says, hey, you got to start filing now. You've gone over that threshold. Anyway, so she has not appeared to raise or spend more than $1,000. So I guess we'll just say she's raised and spent $900, or raised and has on hand $999, because why not? Oh, Jamie said she's running for Congress now. Okay, yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. I have some suspicion how that might go. But anyway, moving on. Next, we have Tudor Dixon. I met her recently at an event. She was, I would say, the best speaker at the event, and her background is in, I think, news and radio and TV, that kind of thing. She was a great speaker, but as I told her at the time, I think she's in a tough position to be financially competitive, but she's doing better than some people we've looked at. She has raised over $500,000 as of New Year's, and that is something. That is substantial. However, she has also spent almost all of it. She has $96,000 on hand, and that is a lot less than some of the other candidates have in this race. And again, she seems like she's excellent. Maybe she'd be a great running mate, but those are probably not the numbers you would need to be a contender in the primary. And by the way, folks, listen, I say that with absolutely no satisfaction. I don't like that that's the way the system works, but I'm someone who believes in painful reality over pleasant fantasy. And sometimes on a small scale campaign, an underdog who's outgunned financially can really make a huge difference. But when you're in a race that is so big, that has so much turf as running for governor, the fact is people are going to see ads during the Super Bowl for some of these candidates, and they're going to have staff paid on the ground in all 83 counties, knocking on doors, distributing literature, telling voters about the candidate. And you go knock on doors for your grassroots preference candidate, whether it's Tudor Dixon or Ryan Kelly, who I think we're going to look at next, or anyone else. They're going to say, who? And they're going to think, just by the volume of mail and TV and internet and all the marketing that they get from the funded candidates, they're going to think your guy is some nobody. And that they hold that against candidates, right or wrong. It's what they do. Okay, so next up is actually not Ryan Kelly. It is Garrett Soldano. This is the founder of Stand Up Michigan, previously known as Michiganders Against Excessive Quarantine on Facebook. And last time we checked, although that was like 3 months ago, and this was when Rinke was not in the race. The other guy, Perry Johnson, was not in the race at all. Soldano was in the running, at least financially. Let's see how he is doing now. a look at his summary page. Again, he's filing for some, and I don't know why, but he and Craig have filed this different looking report, but we'll go by the same metrics. Total receipts, private funds, cumulative for this election cycle. Soldano has raised $1.3 million total and now has $315,000 on hand. So there you go. I think he might have spent more than he raised in the last period just by that, because I thought he had more last time I looked. Yeah, you see expenditures 400,000, contributions 250. So that's not a good look for a candidate to have less money in the bank after more time in the race and still yet a long ways away from the primary. So those are those numbers, and we'll move on. We'll see who else we've got here. Next up, we have Ralph Rebant. Last time I saw him, he told me he had some big news to announce soon, and I haven't seen or heard from him since. Maybe it's something to do with some kind of windfall financial thing going on with his campaign. He has, well, I guess not, because he's taken in $15,000 in this period, unless something happened since January 1st. He has raised in total $233,000, which is, I mean, it's respectable. Anyone can raise that kind of money. It would be great to run for state rep or state senate or something. He has spent almost all of it, at least as of January 1st, and has $7,000 on hand, which will put him at a disadvantage in election season unless he can turn that around in a big way. Who else do we have? Next is Ryan Kelly. He is, from what I've heard from just grassroots people in various local meetings, he is a grassroots favorite, or among the grassroots favorites. Let's see how he is doing. He is raised less than several of those other candidates we looked at. He has raised $98,000 for his campaign so far. And he spent most of it. He has $32,000 on hand. And I mean, there you go, folks. Like I said, I understand why people support him and Ralph Rebant and Tudor Dixon, but these are hard numbers. So we got only two more to go. Bob Scott, who, as I understand, is a perennial candidate. He always runs for governor. Oh, he's got a lot of late contribution reports. Look at that. That might mean he got a contribution right before the filing deadline or something. No, that doesn't mean that. That's what that means, that right before election day. That's not what that is. Anyway, Bob Scott raised $8,500 and spent almost all of it and has $300 on hand. Okay. And one more to go. First to file, give him that. Austin Chang. He has a statement, but he hasn't filed it, and that's not a good thing, because you're supposed to file. You're kind of required by law to. I guess we'll just go by his October quarterly, and he's going to have to pay a fine probably for not filing on time. And he doesn't have this is kind of different than what we've seen before. He, I guess, files with ink and paper, not online. Let's see what we can determine from this. We'll go to the next page. Itemized contributions. He reports $30 in that period. And he appears to have left the column that we need to look at blank, the one that says how much money he's raised. He says his ending balance is $213, and I guess since he left the thing blank, we'll just go by his cash on, or his total raise. We'll just go by the biggest number on this page. Okay, so it looks like he must have had to raise $1,200 to have $1,200 in expenditures. So there you go, folks. That is where we are at. That is how much has been reported for the candidates for governor on the Republican side. Oh, wait, let's look at one more thing. I almost forgot. Let's go back and look at something else. The one to beat, Gretchen Whitmer. Where's she at? Ooh, nearly $20 million. That's a lot of money, folks. Oh, she's only got 10 on hand. Now, there may be, I don't know. I don't know the status of this now, but there has been a lawsuit alleging that Whitmer took in a ton of illegal contributions that were way over the limit because she claimed that because she was subject to a recall, she was therefore allowed to raise unlimited money, not subject to the cap on how much money an individual can give to a candidate for governor, which was complete gibberish because she was never actually subject to a real recall. So I don't think that, I don't know whether or not she is going to lose that, depending on the outcome of that case. It's probably still pending. She probably is still holding on to it, but we don't know. I guess we could look at something. Let's look at Clearwater Contributions, say, for this period, because she's got some that are over the limit. Yeah, I mean, here you go. You got a guy who on October 22nd donated $50,000 to her. That should not be legal, and hopefully a court will find that illegal. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, that is still pending. So she may lose a good chunk of that money, but that's still a ton of money. And that's also why money's important on our side too, and why voters care about that, because they need to be able to believe that the Republican nominee, is going to be able to compete financially with Gretchen Whitmer this year, excuse me. It's already the election year. So there you go. So anyway, folks, let me do this. I want to kind of combine these numbers and make it a little more visually clear what we're really looking at here. So give me just one moment here, and I'll pull this up. I'll make a little chart so we can see what we're really looking at. Hold on one sec. Let's just share the screen. Here we go. Here, let me make this fill the window better. Or maybe I'm screwing this up. I'm trying to make this look pretty on the screen so it's not running to the end. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to go like this. And then like this. There we go. That looks a little more. Bam. Okay, now I got that nice frame. All right. So here's where we are. Rinke, and again, what we don't know about is Perry Johnson, because we have no numbers from him at all yet. But what we know from the public records is what they have on hand and the total that they've raised. And this is the bar chart. So on hand, which I consider the more important number, Rinke is way ahead. Craig is second. Soldano is a distant third. Brown is a distant fourth to Soldano. Dixon is in fifth. Kelly and everybody down to the end is basically not even showing up at all. They have no resources, period. Total raised, again, Rinke may be able to throw in more. Craig may be able to raise more. And we know nothing about Perry Johnson. Soldano's campaign, these numbers look better for him 3 months ago. His on-hand number is dropping faster than his total raised number is dropping. So then the next question, I guess, is Perry Johnson and Rinke too. And folks, look, this is all speculation. It's somewhat informed speculation from someone who's been involved in Michigan politics a long time. But I will bring up this. Let me start with this. Hold on, I gotta share my screen. Let me just pull up this other window here. This is the news story about Perry Johnson. It just came out 4 days ago. It says Perry Johnson, a businessman from Bloomfield Hills, self-described quality guru, joining the race. In a statement Thursday, Johnson, founder of Perry Johnson Companies Group, sounds like a company that's main business is buying other companies, said he's filing the required paperwork that will allow him to raise and spend money on his campaign and plans to announce his candidacy formally in February. Well, it's announced now, buddy. You filed. And you got the generic statement, Michiganders deserve better, blah, blah, blah. Emphasis on quality, which would have a much better government. Now, already it sounds like he's running the moderate rhetoric. He's styling himself as a quality assurance guy. He's a process guy. Sounds like how Rick Snyder ran his campaign in 2010, doesn't it? He was the CEO of Gateway Computers, Rick Snyder was, and I'm an outsider. I'm a nerd. In fact, the main kickoff in Snyder's campaign was a very famous Super Bowl ad that was his real campaign kickoff, where it was Rick Snyder is one tough nerd. And it looks like this is kind of getting at the same thing. So it says his candidacy would add to the August primary contest another GOP contender who's a political outsider, can use his personal wealth to boost his chances. Potentially beneficial trait in a field of Republicans who aren't well known. Again, they're emphasizing the money stuff. His businesses include, okay, so whether his primary or not, who knows? Operates in the certification and registration industry. Who cares? But this is why. This is how he's marketing himself. The world's foremost authorities in quality, whatever that means. His Twitter handle describes himself as a quality guru. So I'm a quality guru, therefore I will be a quality candidate. Again, the impression I'm getting, and again, we don't know yet how he will run his campaign. We don't really well know yet how Rinke will run his campaign. So they could certainly surprise us. But based on this earliest indication, the sense I get is he's going to run as a moderate. He says, his response to Whitmer's State of the State address, which nobody watched, was that it completely ignored the horrendous quality that taxpayers receive for their money. Again, not about issues or policy. It's all about just quality. I'll just be a better governor than Whitmer. I'll pay attention to the quality of things. Proper statistical methods and transparency, kill me, might have prevented $8 billion in fraudulent unemployment claims in Michigan and the Benton Harbor water crisis. I think. I mean, usually you're talking about the Flint water crisis if you're talking about a water crisis, but that's what they say here. Benton Harbor water crisis, and might have kept schools open during the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh, really? Proper statistical methods and transparency was the problem, not governor was a freaking lunatic who didn't care about the Constitution and didn't care about civil liberties, didn't care about the damage she was obviously doing to kids. I mean, to me, this is awful messaging. You know, people are emotional. They get fired up by emotion, not by statistics, and not by, I'll just be a better pencil pusher. And well, trust me, I'll know the science better than Whitmer know the science. But again, folks, it's early. It's early in the race. We'll see what kind of campaign the guy runs. Bachelor's degree, whoop-de-doo. 11 other, we just looked at them. John, here we go. This is important. John Yob, a well-known Republican political consultant who previously helped with Craig's campaign, is working with Johnson. That's in there for a reason, folks. John Yob was Rick Snyder's campaign consultant. You can expect a Super Bowl ad for Perry Johnson. We'll see. Rinke should put one in too. Maybe James Craig even. But Yob is now a very influential national political consultant. He has run a lot of campaigns for candidates that ran as conservatives and turned out not to be, like Rick Snyder, like Ben Sass. But, you know, not to disparage him too much, he is a professional. You can't control what a candidate does, especially after they get into office. So, hey, who knows? But the important thing about John Yob is he is influential. And the fact that Yob left the Craig campaign and is now working for the Johnson campaign. And then look, we have this right here. House Speaker Jason Wentworth provided a positive comment about Johnson on Thursday. Gee, I wonder who made that happen. I'm neutral in the primary, but if you search the country for the best expert to hire to make dramatic improvement in quality in state government, the perfect person you could come up with is Perry Johnson, Wentworth said. So Wentworth is right on Johnson's message. I'm neutral in the primary, but let me give you exactly the statement the candidate would want me to give you. So the Speaker of the House has just said, I'm on board with Johnson. John Yob is on board with Johnson. My prediction, folks, James Craig is going to evaporate over the next few months. Oh, here we go again. Johnson was featured at last fall's Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference on Mackinac Island. Yeah, the establishment went with James Craig. Wasn't taken off. Wasn't ready for prime time. Now they're looking for somebody else. Now they found somebody else. Don't know what their beef is with Rinke. Maybe it's that he's more of a populist type. I don't know. Again, it's too early to say. But there you go. By the way, the other big question, though, is how much money this guy actually has, because that's a big issue with Rinke as well. And we don't know. On our show last night, Amber and Shane said to me he's a billionaire. And if that's true, then he might be able to overwhelm the field with personal money if he's willing to put his personal money into the campaign. But then again, I actually looked up. I just looked up on the internet. Perry Johnson net worth, and that number is a lot lower. $15 million is still a lot of money to have. But if you're running for office and you are worth $15 million, would you put $10 million of your own dollars into the race, thinking that, you know, maybe I won't win in the general election, maybe not even in the primary? And you got another figure claiming $1.5 million And then there's another post down here somewhere that says 5 million. Well, this here says 15. Anyway, who knows, guys? Who knows? But going back to my chart earlier, my prediction, folks, is it's going to be a race between Rinke and Johnson. Soldano has fallen too far behind financially. Everybody else is not remotely in the race financially. You can be upset that that's the way it works in politics, but that is the way it works in politics, period. And don't be mad at me. I'm just the messenger. Or don't believe me, and we'll see who's right after the August primary. But my prediction is it's going to be a race between Rinke and Johnson. So there you go, folks. With that, let's return to the fundraising numbers, and let's look at Attorney General and Secretary of State. So let me just pull up my screen here, and we'll continue on. Well, I won't make a fancy chart this time because there's not a lot of candidates in these races. Let's look at Attorney General. Offices sought, Attorney General, parties, Republican. And here are the three. There are only three. Oh, Daniel Lawless says that's a different Perry Johnson I'm looking up. Well, there you go, folks. And again, look, as I said, this is all tentative information for me. I could be wrong. If in fact he is a billionaire and he's going to put $10-20 million into this campaign, he might scare off everybody else in the race, or maybe not. But anyway, all right, let's look at the Attorney General races. We've got Ryan Berman. Here is his statement. And again, just look at the important numbers. Total raised, $300,000, a little over. Total on hand, almost $300,000. That's Ryan Berman. He's a state representative. And that's what his fundraising numbers are. And now keep in mind, these folks are nominated at convention, not on the primary. So they don't need millions of dollars to win the nomination. However, delegates do often think about how much money they've raised and whether or not they can be competitive against the incumbent Attorney General. Let's look at Matt Diperno next. Something is missing here, folks. Matt Diperno has apparently not yet filed his campaign statement for the end of the year, and that's bad. Now, it's possible. It's possible the deadline to file is midnight tonight and not 5 p.m. earlier today. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Maybe he still has an hour and 22 minutes to get his annual campaign statement in. If not, that's a very bad look, though. It's bad if you're running for Attorney General, the guy whose job is to enforce the laws, and your opponents can point to you and say you can't even comply with them. So that's not a good thing. I mean, maybe he can blame his treasurer. Oh, he is his treasurer. Well, that's not a good thing. Well, I tell you what, I guess we'll just look at his October statement and we'll just interpret what we can from that. And here we go. Total raised $77,000, just under that, 76 and change, and spent a good chunk of it. So total on hand is $47,000. And again, that's as of mid-October. If you guys are Matt Diperno fans out there, you might want to send him a text or an email or a Facebook message or something and say, hey, I'm going to get that campaign finance report in stat, buddy, because it's due, possibly overdue. So there you go. And finally, we have Tom Leonard, former Speaker of the House. I worked for a lawmaker when he was Speaker. I will say he was an outstanding Speaker. Wasn't happy with the campaign he ran against Dana Nessel. He should have won it, but and he's made some mistakes over the years. But overall, I do like the guy. But doesn't mean he's the best candidate. I've heard some rumors about him. I'm not going to repeat them because I can't confirm them. But let's see what he's got. He's got total raised of $681, just under $682,000 raised so far, and almost all of that's still on hand. So that is the front runner for fundraising in the Attorney General race. And Ryan Berman at a little more than half of that, and Matt Diperno probably very far behind unless something has changed since getting the Trump endorsement in the last 2 months. He ought to file and let us know. So there you go, folks. That is those are the numbers for the Attorney General race. Like them or don't, that's what they are. So we'll look at one more race here, and that's Secretary of State. Oh, well, before I do that, let's look at Attorney General for the Democrat side. See how Dana Nessel's doing. Friends of Dana Nessel. She did not forget to file, unfortunately. $2 million on hand. No, $2 million total raised, 1.6 on hand. More than Republicans, but not entirely out of their league. So there you go. That's Dana Nessel. All right. I want to wrap this up soon because, frankly, nature is calling me. But let's look at Secretary of State for the Republican. Let's look at the Democrats because I already got it pulled up. Jocelyn Benson, number to beat. By the way, there's a big story the other day. Today, I think, actually. Some liberal group has just thrown $500 million into state politics, into target states, including Michigan. So all these Democrats are likely going to be receiving some of that money. Benson raised 1.6, has 1.4 million on hand. How is our side comparing? We have Cindy Berry. I have not heard of her. I guess she's the last to file. She has reported she has raised $9,000 and has a little more than half of that still on hand. Not good. That's not good, folks. Those are not impressive numbers. I don't know that she's all that serious. Bo LaFave, I thought he is a state rep. He's term limited, so he won't be able to run for re-election. He's running for Secretary of State. He has raised nearly $20,000 and has nearly $16,000 on hand. That's more than Cindy Berry, but that is that is chump change. That's not good. Christina Caramo, love her, grassroots favorite, wonderful speaker. Hope she wins. Let's see how she's doing. Raised $228,000. Good for you, Christina. Has also spent a lot, however. She has $133,000 on hand. So far, the front runner that we've seen in the Michigan Republican race for Secretary of State. So please to raise a lot more to beat Jocelyn Benson, though. Oh, we only have one more. Kathleen Postmus. Is she running in this term? She filed in December of 2020. So yeah, she's running for this term, and she has a whole lot of failure to file notices, and that's it. So there you go, folks. That's where they are financially. The race for governor, attorney general, secretary of state. You might not like what the numbers say, but the numbers are reality, folks. That's all there is to it. So anyway, I'm sure we'll have more analysis about this and discussion on our next show, but just wanted to bring that all to you so you could see what they are, and also so that you can see how that you can look them up for your state rep and state senator, or the candidates for the state house and state senate seats, so you can see how those candidates are doing. And that's important, useful information for you all to have. So, all right, folks, we're going to call a stream. I've been going for almost 45 minutes, so we'll talk more about it next week. Feel free, if you have any questions, leave a comment. This will be posted on Rumble as well. And I always forget to say this, but folks, please do, like, share, subscribe if you like this kind of content. We are still on YouTube, and we are also on Facebook, and this will be posted on Rumble again soon. So, all right, folks, I got to go. As always, thanks again for all you do for liberty. Until next time, peace.